You know, the story of an event that changes the entire world usually starts with a bang or some kind of grand miracle.
This story begins with something much quieter, and for its time, way more unbelievable: an empty grave discovered by a woman.
Yeah, and think about it. If you were making up a story in the ancient world and wanted people to believe it, you would never pick women to be your star witnesses. Their testimony was not considered reliable by anybody at that time.
Imagine that morning, before the sun was even up, a small group of women made their way through the gloom to a borrowed tomb. They weren't expecting a miracle.
No, they were grieving and carrying spices to perform one last act of love and kindness for their crucified teacher, Jesus. Their biggest worry was a practical one. Who was going to roll away the heavy stone sealing that entrance?
But when they got there, the stone was already gone. The tomb was open, and it was empty. And in an instant, their grief turned to confusion and then to fear.
Yeah, and then an angelic message declared, "He is not here. He has risen,"
Thank you,
just as he
Jesus.
said. They ran to tell the disciples who were hiding, locked away in fear. Peter and John took off, racing to the tomb. When they saw these neatly folded burial cloths, it left them breathless. This wasn't a grave robbery. This was something else entirely, something inexplicable or unexplainable. Like, it wasn't a grave robbery. It was the reverse.
Amen.
It was a robbery of hell. That's what it was.
My goodness.
We're not thankful enough, folks.
No, we're not.
So here's the problem: the skeptical questions, as we put it here. Now, an empty tomb by itself does not prove a resurrection, and I've heard that argument again and again over the years.
That's true.
It just raises a big question: like, where'd the body go?
Yeah, the first official explanation was simple: the disciples stole it. But that theory falls apart pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, even in Islam, they revere Jesus, and they have a belief that he was replaced with somebody else. So who died on the cross was an imposter, and that Jesus was taken into heaven, and the body was stolen, and all these crazy things. But here's the thing: why would these men who had scattered and hidden for their own lives, why would they suddenly find the courage to steal a body and then invent a lie about it? A lie that they would then, according to strong and uniform early church tradition, they would die in brutal ways without a single one recanting what they believed. Not a one of them said, "I don't believe this anymore, just spare my life." No, some of them went to the cross themselves with a smile on their face.
Exactly.
And said, "Don't crucify me the same way he did. Crucify me upside down, according to tradition." Yeah. So,
amen. People will die for what they believe in and for what they believe is true, but they rarely die if they know it's a lie.
Right. And other theories pop up, like the authorities moving the body or women going to the wrong tomb.
But if the authorities had the body, they could have just produced it to stop the Christianity before it even started. And a wrong tomb mix up, well, that would have been just as easy to clear up as anything else. These explanations just these explanations just don't square with the explosive events that really happened next. The empty tomb isn't the whole story. It's just the beginning. What's fascinating is that a strong majority of modern scholars who studied this period, including many who aren't believers themselves, agree on the core set of minimal facts.
Yeah. In fact, 1, Jesus of Nazareth died by Roman crucifixion. 2, his tomb was found empty just days later. And 3, his disciples began to have experiences that they sincerely believed were appearances of the risen Jesus. These were not just fleeting glimpses or imaginations. No, these accounts describe him eating with them and appearing to over 500 people at once.
Yeah. And 4, maybe the most powerful evidence of all, transformed lives. The disciples went from a terrified, scattered group into a bold messengers who faced down persecution and even death.
Yeah. And beyond that, key skeptics make a complete 180. Like James, Jesus' own brother, who was a skeptic during Jesus' lifetime, became a leader of the Jerusalem church and died a martyr. And the greatest example to me, and I just preached it this past Sunday, Saul of Tarsus, a man who violently persecuted Christians. He became the Apostle Paul, the greatest missionary of the early church. He's the first religious terrorist.
Man, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
The resurrection isn't just the best explanation for the empty grave. It's the only one that seems to make sense of all these otherwise inexplainable facts.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The global and the personal impact of this day changed the course of human history forever, because the empty grave was the epicenter of a shockwave that has never stopped expanding. When you see videos of a bomb going off and you see the air shockwave come out, that's what happened that day, and it's still happening all around the globe.
Amen.
It launched a movement that, without an army or any kind of political backing, it completely reshaped the world we live in. It's a major reason why the concept of the hospital as a place of charity was born, and why universities were founded by religious organizations. It's even why we have a day of our week called Sunday.
But the global impact is really just billions of personal ones. The resurrection claims that God has ultimate power over even life and death.
Yeah, it validates who Jesus said he was, and it confirms that his sacrifice on the cross was enough to make forgiveness possible.
Yeah, for a believer, this means that failure isn't the end. Guilt doesn't get the last word, and death isn't the final stop, but a doorway. It gives us the assurance that just as Christ was raised, those who trust in him will also be raised into a new, unending life. That single hope can give our lives meaning now and incredible courage when we face suffering.
Amen. From a confusing empty tomb to a global faith, the resurrection is the central claim of Christianity. It says that Jesus' victory over death changes absolutely everything.
Yeah, it offers forgiveness for your past, strength for your present, and secure hope for your future.
Yeah, and an event this big demands a response. It's a historical claim with deeply personal implications. So what do you think about the evidence? How does the idea of the resurrection impact how you see your own life and death? I'd be fascinated to read your thoughts in the comments below.
Definitely. Let's have a good, respectful conversation. And if this gave you something to chew on, please share it with someone else.